Paolo Banchero maxes out his magic number in his contract negotiations. What went so wrong in the Pacers talks with Myles Turner? And 4 teams are confirmed to be gearing up for talks to add Bradley Beal. But what are the sneak teams waiting to surprise us all? That's today on Locked On NBA.
You are Locked On NBA, your daily NBA podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On NBA. Thanks so much for making us your first listen of the day. We are free. We are available wherever you get your podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $150 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. I'm Doug Branson, host of Locked On Hornets, and your shot clock Sherpa, guiding you through the NBA's biggest stories every day with the help of Locked On's local experts. And I have 2 of the best with me, as always, from the Locked On Nuggets podcast and senior NBA writer for the Action Network. It's Matt Moore. Matt?
I did 3 hours of sports radio yesterday, and I don't know how these people do it. I don't know how they talk for 3 hours straight. It was absolutely insane.
What was your hottest take yesterday on the radio?
I think my hottest take was that the Nuggets might be better off without Jonas Valanciunas. That was maybe the hottest take.
Oh, all right. Maybe we'll talk about that on a future show. And from the Locked On Bulls podcast, we've got Haize. Haize.
Just out here living life, watching deals go down and wondering, when are we going to get our big contract from Locked On? Is it time to renew our contract? We need a Supermax. I think we're ready for a Supermax.
Starting negotiations. Will Matt Moore get the bag? That's the future topic on Locked On.
Oh, wait, hang on. I'm getting news. I've just been traded for a second-round pick.
You've been traded to Locked On Cavs, I think.
Oh, God.
Can do worse. I like Danny.
Speaking of players getting the bag, how about Paolo Banchero? He just got it from the Orlando Magic, signing a 5-year rookie max extension worth $239 million. Locked On Magic's Philip Rossman-Reich says this was not a gamble, it was a message to the rest of the league.
Everything in this league starts with your centerpiece player. And no matter how much anybody wants to doubt Paolo Banchero, the Magic are here to say, we believe in him, and we're going to let things play out. Is Paolo Banchero the kind of star you can build a championship around? It sure looks that way. It sure feels that way. This will be the first time the Magic have had 2 max players on the roster since Dwight Howard and Rashard Lewis. The title window is open. Are the Magic good enough to win the title in 2026? I think it's going to take some doing, but you see the outlines of it. You see it's possible.
Almost $250 million invested in one player. Matt, did the Magic have enough right now to compete for an NBA championship with Paolo as their best player?
Not quite yet. I'm very optimistic about Paolo's future because one of the things is Paolo has the build style and skill set of Melo, but he has way more of a team approach, is way better at defense, is way more engaged as a rebounder. So like he has the potential to be all these other things that Melo never really cared to do. And that to me is really exciting. But their offense is so far behind that I cannot see them making this monumental jump year over year to immediately put them into contention. And the problem is like they don't have time before the CBA comes calling. Haize is like, this is going to catch up with them. They got 2 years. And then we're going to be looking at one of Suggs or Bane or Franz is going to have to go. They're going to be in the exact same spot the Celtics were. They're going to be in the exact same spot a lot of these teams are. They can keep Paolo and Franz and one of Suggs or Bane, but they can't keep both. So they got like a 2-year window to try and find try and be that team, to be good enough to beat the top level teams in this league before it gets too tight. And I think we're going to see more and more of this where the young cores we never really see get to stick together because they're going to have to break them up the minute that they get paid.
Yeah, I mean, the money that they have allotted is crazy, and it does affect the building. Now, I do think with them having all the core locked in, basically all until the end of 2028, some are there to 2029, that is, if they're winning, they can keep everyone for now, but they have to be winning. They have to be getting close and flirting with the title. Now, I know Matt said that they have a lot that they need to do, but I look at last year as a bit of a year that got derailed some. I still think the Magic are one of the best teams in the Eastern Conference. I think that defense pushes them up. I think now with adding Bane And they added more scoring and shooting that they need. They can still got Jace Richardson as well, who it's a lot to put on a rookie, but he can end up being a scoring punch off the bench for them also. So I think the Magic are in a really good spot. I would have done it. At the place they are, you lock in everybody, you figure it out later down the road. But the Magic are a really, really good team. I think especially next year with the East being a little bit more open, they got to make their move this year.
So I don't think many people are going to question giving Paolo Banchero a max contract, but certainly people have questioned his efficiency, offensive efficiency so far in the league. Most famously, Tim Bontemps from ESPN has been critical of that. And I think a lot of people could counter that and say, well, Orlando has not had a lot offensively to help him out, but they've added Tyus Jones, as you mentioned, they've added Jace Richardson and Desmond Bane. Haize, do we need to see him play more efficiently this season offensively for the Orlando Magic to achieve what they want to achieve this coming postseason?
Absolutely. And I think they're in a really good position to do so because now Paolo does have a Desmond Bane. And even him and Franz last year, like Franz took a big step up offensively, but I look at it as him because of Franz and Paolo having their injuries, they were still kind of learning what that looked like together. They got Tyus. You need Suggs to stay healthy. So I think they have now the arsenal to where Paolo can be better at picking spots, focus on being more efficient. He doesn't have to have as much on him offensively. So I think this is a season where that refinement for Paolo has to come, where he has to be that more efficient player. Numbers could stay the same, but if he can do that while being more efficient, I think that's really the sweet spot for him to be in.
Yeah, this is where that mellow comp kind of comes to the bad side of this, right? Which is like he's able to get so many great shots up, but he's not necessarily all that efficient. And I think it is a concern, but I'm just kind of like, look, do you think his jumper is broken? No. Like, do you think that he's going to be able to get the place where that jumper is there? Yeah. And I also just think that when you look at the Magic offense last year, so much of it felt like grenades for him, or it's like, well, nothing else worked. Paolo, go do something. If he's able to actually just find mechanisms and get the spots on the floor that are his comfort spot, his spots, that's going to make things a lot better because teams take that away from you when you're the only offensive threat. And with better surrounding talent, he should be in a better position to get to those shots.
All right, Paolo, the big story today. The big story yesterday was the 3-team trade between the Clippers, Heat, and Jazz. There's reaction from each team's local podcast that you can listen to right now. But Locked On Heat, unsurprisingly, felt like they won the trade, bringing in Norman Powell to a team that badly needed offense. But David Ramil, I think he took it a step further. He says Powell can more than help their scoring issues. He can lead. Take a listen to this.
Norman Powell would have graded out as Miami's second best offensive player last season, according to Box Plus Minus. I thought that was interesting. And then B-Ball Index ranks him 11th in three-point shooting talent in the NBA. He was essentially the 11th most talented three-point shooter in the league last year. Tyler Herro was 10th. Their numbers were nearly identical. So to me, there's no question that this is going to help the offense.
I think he comes to Miami, and almost the expectation, I would say, is that he emerges as their go-to lead scorer.
Ooh, over Herro?
Yes.
I don't know.
Yes.
It feels like with Herro being the incumbent, it'll still be... I would be a little surprised if Powell finished with more points per game than Herro did.
Well, we'll see, because I like his ability to get to the line a little bit better.
I love the "we'll see." That's a classic line for me on Locked On Hornets. When I feel like I've won the argument and I don't really have a counter to what the person just said, I drop a good "we'll see." Haize, will we see? Will Norman Powell assume a lead scoring role for the Miami Heat by season's end? And is that their most realistic path to remaining competitive in the East?
I definitely think there's a chance. I think there's a chance that he could be their leading scorer, because I think the way that Norman Powell, like he's kind of more of a dominant scorer. And I think that you could see Tyler Herro still get his points up but play a more secondary role. Now, as far as your second part of that question, is that their path to become a more dominant team in the East? No, I don't think there is a path for them to do that. They'll be in the play-in like they are every year. We'll talk about them as a scrappy team. They'll win a couple of games and look good at times, but business stays the same in Miami this season with this move, in my opinion.
The money here is a weird thing about this. What if they did this? Presumably they're going to extend him. Why are you doing this if you're trying to go young? That doesn't really make any sense. The other thing here that a lot of Heat people are kind of hinting right now is like, yeah, we'll see if Tyler's still there. Like, what's going on with Tyler? If not, then they've got Tyler and Norman Powell, which here's like a nerd out thing because Superman's coming out on Friday. Batman's former Robin turns into this character called Nightwing. And it's like, cool character. Dick Grayson's cool and all this. No one cares about him. No one cares. You cannot make a team out of Nightwing. There's no Nightwing movie. You got a bunch of Nightwings leading that team, and I don't get it. The other thing with Norman Powell here is this. Pre-All-Star, okay? 24 points per game on 50, 43, 82 splits, 2.2 assists per game. Post-All-Star, 14 points per game on 43, 37, 73 splits. He had a really good 3 months and then turned back into Norman Powell. And I'm pretty skeptical, especially if they're going to pay him off of those 3 months. I am deeply concerned about this move for the Miami Heat. They gave up nothing to get a really good player. The question is, like, what does this do for their direction and team build? That's the question I have. If this is part of a larger construct, it makes sense. Norman Powell cannot be your number one. He cannot, period, be your number one.
All right, let us know what you
Don't
think.
say that out loud. Pat Riley's going to see that as a challenge, man.
There you go.
Let us know what you think on YouTube, youtube.com/@LockedOnNBA. Coming up, still a lot of questions around the Pacers team build and what happened in their negotiations that went all wrong with Myles Turner, who ends up in Milwaukee. We'll get some quotes from the president of basketball operations, Kevin Pritchard, and some analysis from Tony East of Locked On Pacers. Plus, we dig into the sweepstakes for Bradley Beal. He's not even been released yet, but team's still vying for an opportunity to speak with him when he does. We'll get into all of that ahead on Locked On NBA. Today's episode of Locked On NBA is brought to you by FanDuel. Summer sports are in full swing, and whether you're all about baseball under the lights, golf on the green, or high-stakes soccer action, FanDuel is the best way to make every game even more exciting. You're already following the action. They've got some lines on Summer League action. I know you're following that right now. You can check that out on FanDuel. Why not make it all a little bit more thrilling? With FanDuel, you can get in on the game while your friends are getting sunburned at the beach. It's super easy to use, fast to ease out, payout, and makes even regular season games or summer league games feel like must-watch events. Whether you're placing a same-game parlay or watching a bet ride into the ninth inning, FanDuel makes it like you're part of the action. New to FanDuel? I've got good news. New customers can bet just $5, and you're going to get $150 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. Open the FanDuel app today. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon. More Locked On NBA ahead. Thanks for making Locked On NBA your first listen every day. Indiana Pacers president of basketball operations, Kevin Pritchard, spoke to the media for the first time since Myles Turner signed a 4-year deal, not with the Indiana Pacers, but with the Milwaukee Bucks. He provided a little bit more background on how the negotiations suddenly got away from them. Here's Locked On Pacers host Tony East with that and what he thought was, or here's Tony East with what he thought was the most interesting quote.
Before anyone asked about the specifics of his departure, he said, quote, "We were deep in conversations with Myles, and then we saw that he'd accepted an offer with Milwaukee." Let me read that part that I think is interesting again. We saw that he'd accepted. Saw really hit me. I was like, whoa. And he did confirm later that they found out as a team that Myles Turner was heading to the Bucks from that Shams tweet, from that negotiation, that Myles Turner would not be returning. Like, it's not crazy to me that the Pacers would have offered what the Bucks did. Why didn't they? If they were so close, right? I said that last week. If they were so close, it's crazy to me that they wouldn't just go a little higher as opposed to losing him for nothing. That would be the why, is they did not get a chance to.
Is loyalty dead in the NBA? And if so, who killed it? Haize, we're going to start with you. If you were Myles Turner, would you have given the Pacers a chance to match, or can you see why he jumped ship for Milwaukee without letting them know?
I mean, if I was Myles Turner, yes, I would have given them a chance to match. I think, being able to stay with the same franchise, that you've been there, that you understand, I would have done that personally. But I can also understand why he didn't. We were talking a little bit before we started recording here. Like, Myles Turner has been in trade rumors literally the majority of the time that he's been in the NBA. And I think that maybe whether he looked at it and saw an opportunity to play with Giannis rather than spend a year just circling around with the Pacers while Tyrese was out, that he saw an opportunity to go play with Giannis and still take an opportunity in a weaker East, and he bet on himself. I can't blame him for that because, like I said, I don't know what that's like to constantly be in trade talks, even though I'm performing. And he's been consistently getting better as well and refining his game, even with the couple of bad playoff series that he had. So I completely understand what Myles did. Not what I would have done, but I do understand it.
Yeah, so there's a couple things here. I would have gone back because I probably would have been like, this team, I've been so comfortable here, and there's a possibility I get more money, right? Like, you deny yourself the opportunity to get more money by not giving the Pacers a chance to match. However, we don't know if the Bucks were like, this is the offer, it's on the table for this period of time. If you do not take it, it will be off the table. We're moving on. Like, teams do that. And once you're in that situation, you're like, well, okay, I can make sure I get this. But if that table goes away and the Bucks sign somebody else, now the Pacers have gained more leverage, right? It's this musical chairs thing where you got to take what's available to you. The other part here is just, he was reportedly in talks with Giannis for a bit of a while about this kind of move. And maybe he's got a relationship with Doc that we don't know about. If he really feels like this is the best place for him, like, sometimes players just make those decisions of like, I just want to be here. This seems like the right fit. This seems like the right place. This seems like where I want to be. And it doesn't really, it doesn't matter what the other team is going to offer. But I kind of wonder if this was more of Myles saw an opportunity to get a good offer and then went for it. And I don't blame him a bit for that because of the risks that are involved with trying to always go back and get more money.
Yeah, so you bring up the factor there. We don't know what Milwaukee said, if they put any kind of indication of like, hey, if you walk away, this deal is gone. What we also don't know and may never know is what factor the Indiana Pacers and their reputation and their unwillingness to pay the tax played in this as well. What do you think about that factor, Matt, that maybe if you're Myles Turner, you're just going to be more willing to take a great deal because there might be even a 5% chance that you go back to Indiana and then they say, nah, we're not willing to do that, particularly with the injury to Tyrese Halliburton.
There were a lot of rumors that this was done back in the beginning of June at about $30 million before the finals started, that it was going to be like a 3-year deal at $30 million. And that was going to be what he wound up getting signed for. That he wanted 35. They were going to see if the Pistons or somebody else came in at 40, right, to get some sort of ridiculous offer. So what changed is my question. Maybe those reports were inaccurate. Maybe those rumors were just nonsense. Entirely possible. A lot of that goes on. But if they were true, what changed between the beginning of June and free agency? And the answer is Tyrese Halliburton got injured. And that to me seems like the organization restructured. There's been so much talk of like, the Pacers just don't want to pay the tax. And it's like, okay, but we know under the CBA, these are the decisions that teams are having to make. They're having to squeeze more. Look at the restricted free agents in this class and how none of them are signed. There's no more of this like, well, we got to go ahead and sign them to keep them happy. If there's a chance for you to leverage and squeeze, you take it. And that to me is what the Indiana Pacers did here, and it burned them. Like, that's the cost of this. That's the risk of this, is that the Pacers probably thought we can get him back at a cheaper number. There's not a big enough market, because there wasn't a team that was looking to add him. And then the Bucks waived Dame out of nowhere and become this type of team. But the CBA forces these type of things to happen. Haize, here's my question. If Tyrese Halliburton doesn't tear his Achilles, is Myles Turner an Indiana Pacer?
Yes, he's a Pacer. I think 100% he's a Pacer.
I think so too.
I've got another question. If when we were doing this show around the finals and we had a topic with the title, should we be considering Myles Turner for finals MVP if the Pacers win, would Myles Turner be an Indiana Pacer right now? Would they have come into those negotiations, not tried to mess around, not tried to squeeze, and said, all right, let's get this done? Haize.
Yeah, if he was finals MVP consideration.
If we were, I'm sorry, not if he won, but if we were having that conversation, because we weren't even close to that conversation.
Yeah.
If you played better.
I think if you played a much better finals, absolutely. Like I think that would of course make you more inclined like to see a player that played in that well. If he would have played that well in the finals, that probably would have made them stay in on the table a little bit more, even with Halliburton's injury. But because he came off of half of the Eastern Conference Finals, he didn't look good, and almost all of the finals he didn't look good. So I do think that played a part into it.
I want to say no, because that seems insane. What, you've had this guy for 7 years and all of a sudden like he has 7 bad games and now he's not worth it? That seems crazy to me. But it happens. It happens in the reverse for sure, because Aaron Gordon went from like, man, I don't know, like AG's getting up there, going to be 30, a lot of miles on him. AG hits like 3 game winners in the NBA playoffs, and now it's like AG is a nugget for life. He will never be dealt. And that's like how it changes. You endear yourself to franchises with those types of moments, which I think kind of sucks, because it's like Myles has had a lot of huge moments for this franchise over multiple seasons. So yeah, I think there's probably an overreaction, I think, in some assessments. I think it's less of the overreaction, Doug, and more of a justification of the approach, right? You didn't have a good final, so we can justify lowering this level of offer for you.
That's a good point.
Now, see, you say it sucks, and I say that the small sample size theater that ultimately happens around the postseason is what makes sports magical. And I risk going on a diatribe that I often go on on the Locked On Hornets podcast, which is that people often say, well, that's too small of a sample size to really consider in this argument. And it's like a 7-game series is a small sample size. A playoffs, just a full playoffs, is a small sample size. Sports lives and dies in the small sample size. And I think it absolutely was a factor.
But he was also great in the Cavs series. You upset a 60-whatever win team because Myles Turner obliterated those switches. He ran into brutal matchups against an elite defense in the finals. I have a hard time being like, yeah, because of this one. Who are you getting? Like, tell me who you're, because looking around that center room right now, let's say you were to get back there in 2 years and you don't have Myles, who are you getting that's actually going to make you feel better about that Thunder matchup?
All I have to say is Jay Huff. Do it in the finals or you're in trouble, buddy. All right, coming up on Locked On NBA, let's talk more about Bradley Beal. We've got 4 teams in the running, but could a team sneak in there and surprise everyone like Milwaukee did in those Myles Turner talks? That's coming up on Locked On NBA. All right, thanks again for making Locked On NBA your first listen every day. We turn our attention now to the sweepstakes for Bradley Beal, which really hasn't even begun yet, but a lot of people talked about it like it had began once the deal between the Clippers and the Heat and the Jazz went down. A lot of people saw that as the LA Clippers making some room for a run at Bradley Beal. We've got some reaction here from Locked On Clippers on what a Bradley Beal relationship with the Clippers would have to look like if it were going to be successful. Let's take a listen to that.
I would love Beal as a 6th man. Is he willing to do that? If he's not, like, why do we need to get him then? You're in no position to be making demands making $5 million, dude. That's how I feel about it. And then, I've talked about it. Beal has exuded a lack of seriousness. And don't tell me, the Clippers will make him serious. Why should you not be serious in Phoenix when you have Kevin Durant and Devin Booker with you? He was part of the problem. He wasn't as big of a problem as people thought because his fit just wasn't good with the team. His fit would be better with the Clippers. And there would be much less expectations. But you need a point of attack defender. Or else, you know what? We'll be a good team. We're not going to win anything serious, though. We're going to start out games in trouble. And you're going to say, why is every opposing guard cooking us?
If you're not watching on YouTube, Darian Vaziri there of Locked On Clippers, he looks like he's ready to check in, be the 6th man. He's dressed for success. So, Matt, what do you think about his argument there that if you're the Clippers and you're going to bring someone like Beal in and they're not a point of attack defender, then you really can't start that player. You have to look at him. You have to view him as a 6th man.
Yeah, I agree I agree there with Vazirian on this. I agree that if he's going to play, he's going to have to come off the bench. I have a bigger thing, which is no, do not do this. Are you out of your minds? What are you doing? You have Kawhi Leonard, James Harden, and you want to add Bradley Beal? What are you, just like picking up the most unserious top players you can get in the NBA? What? Your entire problem is you have a leadership gap, and you want to add Bradley Beal, who year after year took more money from the Wizards because he knew it was low expectation, high salary, who went to Phoenix, and look, I think he got scapegoated a little bit in Phoenix, and I think Brad can have a really good role on an NBA team and be a contributing factor, but you have to start with a serious franchise. The Clippers had a great season last year. They were a really good team. They could have won if they were serious, but they're not, which is why they went out in the first round. You cannot add Bradley Beal to an unserious franchise. This is a hard no if I'm the Clippers, but this is probably what's going to happen.
Yeah, this is a weird one from the Clippers. Not to say that I don't understand what Bradley Beal can still bring. We talked about that yesterday. I think Bradley Beal has more in the tank than what people are willing to give him credit for, and they blame him basically on why things went wrong in Phoenix, and he wasn't the only reason for that. But the Clippers here, to me, seem like they're grasping at something that's not really going to change much of what they had. You could have just kept Norman Powell. Now I get it. You may not want to give him that contract, but like I don't know. I don't see this working. I like the Clippers, some of their players on their team. Their fans still suck, but it is what it is.
Fans do not suck. They're like the most downtrodden fan base in the NBA. I don't think it gets worse than the Clippers for having what they've had to go through.
What I said.
I won't even trigger. I wanted to do the Clippy thing. It wouldn't even trigger. That's how pathetic.
He's on off season. He's on vacation.
Yeah, that's right. So we talk a lot about rings culture. Maybe we need to have a conversation about anti-rings culture when it comes to Bradley Beal, James Harden, Paul George. It's a little bit of an anti-rings culture. Let's talk about a few other teams that Jake Fisher of the Steinline reported would be interested in bringing Bradley Beal on. That's the Milwaukee Bucks and Minnesota. What would it take to get Bradley Beal to Donna Parka? I mean, are those two teams, Matt, are they serious enough to bring a Bradley Beal on and figure that out?
I mean, if he signs in Minnesota or Milwaukee, it means that Bradley's serious about, I want to be part of I really want to win a championship. That I want to be serious. Like that to me would be great. Those are franchises I think that he can look at and say he's taking less money because they don't have the cap space, and they can add him and he can be like, I am in need here. And even though it's not a glamour franchise, this is a great approach. I get to play with Giannis, or I get to play with Ant. And those are I think the ad for Minnesota would be terrific just by adding another guy who is able to create off the bounce because their offense gets so stagnant at times. So I think those would be really great situations, but we have zero evidence that Bradley's going to make that kind of concession. Beal is from this generation of players, and I don't begrudge them this. I think it's totally fine. But he's from a generation of players that want to have it all. It's the LeBron kind of era of I want the team and the championship and the money and all the power and everything I want, and I get all of it. And he's not really willing to sacrifice anything. There hasn't been a lot of sacrifice by Bradley Beal in his career, and that is his career. He gets to make those decisions. But you're gonna have to show me that he's in a Wolves uniform before I believe it.
I want to pick up on that part because I think that that's what the Wolves do need. And I would love for him to go to a team like that. Like I brought up Orlando the other day. I think he can help Orlando a lot with what they need. I hope Bradley Beal, whatever happens here, he just goes to a team that has it's a clear path on how he can help the team. Don't chase going after a team to just go play with your buddies or things like that. You did that already. It didn't work out for you. I think there are still some teams that Bradley Beal very well can help. I don't know if that's the Warriors. I don't think it's that team, but I do think there's a right combination of a team that he can go to and help. It's just I don't see that being the Clippers. I don't see that being the Warriors. Join the Wild Hogs if you want to, but I don't see much coming out of that.
Okay, well, you don't like the Warriors, but the Locked On Warriors podcast, they like the Warriors, and they say that Bradley Beal and Golden State is a perfect match. It's a match made in heaven. Let's listen to that.
If he were to come in, be the starting shooting guard on the Warriors, be that secondary ball handler, secondary creator, that would be the right role for him. He was, slotted into a third contributor down in Phoenix, which probably isn't necessarily the right slot for him. On the defensive side of the ball, there was no one there that could kind of cover up Bradley Beal's, mistakes or shortcomings on the defensive end.
Now you'd have Jimmy and Draymond. Man, that lineup, Steph Curry, Bradley Beal, Draymond Green, Jimmy Butler, and Al Horford. How are you not intrigued? At the very least, how are you not intrigued?
Wild Hogs coming to theaters this summer. What do you think? Haize, you like that older lineup there. Curry, Beal, Butler, Green, Horford.
I mean, it's I guess it's on trend for what they're doing down there, but that's going to crash and burn. Like that's ugly. That's ugly. Now, Dre, I don't like that at all. Go ahead, man.
What a lineup in 2017. 8 years ago. 8, 9 by the end of next year. A decade. What are we doing? No,
they almost made the conference finals last season. Like that, I mean, they were close.
Did they? Did they, Doug?
That was close.
Did they go 7 with a Houston team whose best offensive player was Jalen Green? Yes. Like everyone acts like if Curry doesn't hurt, they beat the Wolves, and I have no idea why. I have no idea why you think that. That Wolves team was way better than the Warriors. Way better. How about this one? Last season by defensive EPM. So Klay Thompson slid quite a bit. He's 3 years older than Beal, and he's slid quite a bit. Like it's pretty evident Klay is no longer the defender that he used to be after all the injuries. Klay was 42nd percentile in defensive EPM. Bradley Beal was 22nd percentile in defensive EPM. Klay was a much better player last season than Bradley Beal. Now, you're like, yeah, but it's the money thing. Sure. Man, you are begging to be that team that is too old, that the guys do not have there's no way that this works out. I mean, I would love to see it because that means we just isolate all of the old washness on one team. But man, no way. I do not think that this works.
So did we land on Minnesota as the only team that makes sense? I'm trying to just take stock of, or did Milwaukee land on there as well? Like what teams do make sense for Bradley Beal at this point?
I hate doing this because I hate being the guy from Locked On Nuggets that's advocating for the Nuggets, but it does make quite a bit of sense. They need another guard. Russell Westbrook's gone. They've got Bruce Brown, but they need somebody who can get a bucket on his own. If the Valanciunas thing falls through, and we still don't know how that's going to get resolved, they'll have access. If he leaves and they get the buyout, it's $14.1 million on the MLE. They could get Horford and Beal split on that MLE and add Horford and Beal to the Nuggets. And that's probably better than Jonas Valanciunas in a vacuum because it helps you with 2 different roster spots. It's not a bad one. I don't hate that idea. I actually look, if the Heat are going to do this thing with Norman Powell, let's have Tyler Herro and Norman Powell and Bradley Beal all compete for the fake number 1 option. Can we do that? Can we just have them can we have them have a fake number 1 option off in the Eastern Conference for the 8th seed? Because they're going to wind up in the play-in again. It'd be amazing.
Haize, final word. What do you think? What's the team? What's the team that makes the most sense? It's not Chicago, is it?
Oh, God, no, please, unless y'all want to see me in pain. I mean, you can convince me on the Wolves. I still think that the Wolves need more of an actual point guard that they should be going after than more scoring off the bench. But I mean, I guess I can see it working on the Wolves. To me, I'm still going to beat the same drum I started yesterday. To me, Orlando Magic. If he's willing to accept the bench role, go to the Orlando Magic.
Lakers not bad either.
Lakers not a bad fit. They had a good. I almost played this clip, but the Vaziri clip from Locked On Clippers was too good. But go listen to Locked On Lakers. They had a good sort of debate between going after Bradley Beal or DeAnthony Melton, who gives them a lot more of a defensive upgrade. That's sort of the debate. They need both. They need 6-man scoring. They need some wing defense. There's not really a player that fits both of those things, one player. So they had a good debate there. If you like what you heard today, subscribe to Locked On NBA wherever you get podcasts, including YouTube. Thanks to Matt and Haize for their expertise every day. Thank you for making Locked On NBA your first listen every day. Make your second listen Locked On NBA Game Night. It's every Summer League game every night, and it's on this feed on YouTube or wherever you get podcasts. Enjoy tonight's Summer League action. Be kind to each other. We'll see you right back here tomorrow on Locked On NBA.